folks. My name is Catherine All, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Kitsap, I want to welcome you to the 23rd Legislative District Positions 1 and 2 Virtual Candidate Forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that doesn't support or oppose political parties or candidates. After careful study and consensus by our members, the League does take positions on issues, and we take action on those positions at the local, state, and national level. The League is a membership organization and depends on our members to organize and run events such as this. We invite everyone to become members and help us work on our basic belief that our form of government depends upon the informed and active participation of its citizens. The candidates who will be on the ballot in the general election are Drew Hansen and Paige Jarquin for position 2, and Tara Simmons and Janelle Hulst for position 1. However, Mrs. Hulst chose not to accept our invitation to participate. The rules for tonight are the candidates will be given 1.5 minutes to make an opening statement. After all candidates have spoken, the moderator will ask questions that have been submitted by the public. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question. At the end of the forum, each candidate will have another 1.5 minutes to make a closing statement. And candidates, please keep an eye on the digital timer. I don't see where that is. Oh yeah, I do. And let me just say this, each one of you deserves our thanks for stepping up and running for office. Please be respectful of each other. You each deserve that. Now let's get started. We will begin with opening statements. Drew?
Does that mean I should just go ahead?
Yes.
Okay.
Your turn.
Thank you very much, Catherine and the League of Women Voters. It's always a pleasure to see you all, even remotely. I'm Drew Hansen. I serve in the Washington State House of Representatives currently. I mostly work on trying to make sure people have opportunities to get and keep decent jobs to support their families. So I have brought new college opportunities to Kitsap County, Washington State University, and Western Washington University in partnership with Olympic College. I've worked on major bipartisan bills to get old abandoned boats out of our waterways so we protect our shellfish and marine industry jobs. And I've also been working most recently on affordable broadband to give people more broadband options in this somewhat work from home environment. If you all do entrust me with another 2 years, I'll probably do more of the same, and we'll probably talk about that during the forum. But even in this interim time, I've been working with Western Washington University on ways to expand their presence in the peninsulas. You know, like you get out in the Kitsap and Olympic peninsulas, we don't have a 4-year college here. I mean, unlike Spokane, unlike Vancouver, unlike Everett, unlike basically everywhere else. And we just need more opportunities like that so that if people want to go to college, if that's the right choice, they have a way to do it while they can still stay home, take care of their family, keep their job. So I think that's 1.5 minutes, and I don't see the timekeeper on. Maybe something's gone wrong there.
Okay, I'm sorry, Paige, you can go ahead now.
Worries. Alrighty, my name is Paige Jarquin, and I am running for the 23rd Legislative District. My opposition is Drew Hansen, who has a great record in this legislation and what he's done in the last 11 years. I personally am benefiting from some of the work he's done by participating in a program degree, Organizational Leadership and Technical Management at Olympic College. So moving here to Washington, I was at a bit of a deficit because I wasn't able to finish my degree until I found that program. So I'm really excited about that. I am a professional. For the last 38 years, I've worked in the real estate industry and in building and construction. and also in manufacturing. So that's my professional history. My personal is that I am a wife of a former Marine, mother to 3 children. 2 have served in our military, and the grandma to 8 grandchildren, 6 of which take advantage of our education system here in Kitsap County. So I'm running for office to possibly bring a fresh perspective to our legislation and what's going on up in Olympia. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Candy, we're not seeing the time.
How can
I
that
just see
be?
your name.
Okay. Oh, I don't get it either. Okay, I've got this over there.
Okay. Don't you
You
love
see, okay.
technology?
Huh, virtual backgrounds. So this is interesting. You saw it when we were practicing.
Yes.
Wow.
Catherine, do you want me just to be the timer and then say 30 seconds? Or
Okay, let's do it that way for now. So this is 1.5 minutes that they get for the opening statement. And Tara, if you would like to start. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Catherine. It's wonderful to be with you all tonight. My name is Representative Tara Simmons. I've been serving in Olympia the last 2 years. So I have 2 sessions behind me. I mostly work on healthcare and was proud to work with the Attorney General in the last session to bring charity care expansion to the state, helping 2.2 million Washingtonians who have who are under 400% of the federal poverty level to have access to charity care. I also have worked on voting access and restoring the right to vote for people who've been incarcerated. That was my freshman bill in my first session. About 20,000 new voters are now eligible to vote because of that. I also work a lot on the intersection of behavioral health and public safety. I am
30
on
seconds left.
the Public Safety Committee and also on the Healthcare Committee, and working really hard to help people who are suffering with behavioral health issues such as mental health and substance use disorder receive treatment instead of incarceration. So those are some of the big issues I've been working on, and it's been an honor to serve this community that I grew up in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Catherine. I believe that I have figured this out. Do you see that now?
No. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Okay, I'm ready. We got it.
Okay, that's easier then. Okay, we'll start on the questions now. And Candy, they each have 1 minute to answer the questions. And the first one is, what are your funding priorities for the upcoming session? And would you consider cutting some of the corporate tax breaks? And Tara, you'll go first with this question.
Thank you so much. I think some of my funding priorities are around housing, behavioral health, and ferries. Those are the 3 biggest issues I think our community really cares about. And I would probably not be inclined to cut corporate taxes. I am more aligned with increasing big corporations and wealthy people taxes and giving tax relief to working families. Those are my values. I was really happy that we did eliminate the business and occupation tax for very small businesses in the last session, and also reduced the B&O tax for other businesses making over $150,000 a year. But it would depend on the corporation size and their profits. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Drew, you're next on this question.
Thank you. So it is not likely we are going to be spending lots and lots of new money from Olympia next year. I don't know if, I'm sure y'all know what's happening in the economy. It's not great, right? And at the same time, with inflation high, you have to give public employees some kind of raises, otherwise they're going to quit their jobs, right? I mean, in our law firm, we gave raises last year and we gave raises midway through this year. So you got to do about the same to keep your workforce. Once you do that, you're about done with major investments, except for the ferries, which operates in a different budget. I met with the transportation chair just last week, who is completely convinced that we need to make significant new investments on top of the investments we made last year, which were already the most substantial new ferry investments since I've been in Olympia. And man, yeah, I don't need anyone on this, everyone on this call knows how badly those are needed to keep that fleet running. So that's about it, I think, this year.
Okay. And Paige, you're next with this question.
So probably one of the first things I would address is the crime, the increasing crime that we've had. There was some bills that were passed in 2021, and even the individuals that passed them understand that they are not working the way that they intended to, and we've seen a dramatic increase in crime, all kinds of crime, not just personal crime, but crime that affects business owners and individuals alike. We need to reform that back, and that will be one of the first priorities that I hit, because until we all feel safe, it really doesn't matter how much money we have. And then the next would be to bring some tax relief to families. I think there's a number of ways to address that. And so those would be the top two priorities. And then I would like to work a little bit on education.
Okay. Thank you. Next question. Well, here we go. Is support for early learning and support for new parents a priority issue for you? And will you support funding, full funding for the Fair Act for Kids bill as it is rolled out over the next few years? And Drew, you go first on this one.
Sure. I think that, and the question is referring to the Fair Start Act for Kids bill, and I absolutely supported that. I was proud to vote for it. Just so everyone knows, we put in place a tax on extraordinary profit investments. So profits in excess of $250,000 a year. Anything above that gets taxed at a little bit, and we plow that money right into education with a specific emphasis on early learning so that people have more preschool opportunities, more childcare opportunities. I mean, childcare is unbelievably expensive and hard to find, right? So the point of that Fair Start for Kids Act was to take some of these extraordinary investment gain profits and plow that back into creating more early learning and preschool childcare opportunities all throughout Kitsap County and the state. So that's right. I totally support that. Families absolutely need some help with costs on that, and look forward to seeing that roll out in the coming years.
Okay. Paige?
For me?
I didn't hear you.
Repeat the question, please.
Yeah, the question was, is support for early learning and support for new parents a priority issue for you? And will you support funding for the Fair Act for Kids bill as it is rolled out over the next few years?
Okay. So that's a two-part question. The first part is yes, absolutely. I do support new parents, and specifically, we are part of starting a new childcare facility here in Kitsap County because we saw the great need, primarily as it relates to military families. I think that there's a lot more we could do for new families as they're entering that phase of their life. I'm going to have to plead the I don't know on the Fair Start for Kids Act. I wasn't aware that it existed, and so I can't really speak intelligently on it. However, I'm willing to learn about it. Whether or not I could support it would depend on what's in it and how we fund it.
Okay. Fair enough. Tara?
Yes, I absolutely supported the Fair Start for Kids Act and the capital gains tax that went along with it to fund it. I am really excited to watch it be implemented over the next few years. I think that when I think about my work, and especially my work around behavioral health and public safety it all goes back to adverse childhood experiences. And if we can help young children have a nurturing, continued relationship with a nurturing adult, sometimes they don't get that in their family of origin. And so having early childhood care for kids and universal preschool, early learning is very important to prevent and protect kids from adverse childhood experiences. And so hopefully we have less people suffering with behavioral health issues and committing crime later on in life. So I absolutely supported it, voted for both bills, and would again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is a biggie question. And Paige, you get to go first on this one. I'm trying to, change up every question, but this one is, what can the legislature do to address homelessness and affordable housing?
Well, I think that there are two aspects of affordable housing. There's the aspect of how we provide low-income housing to individuals that are needing it, and that includes transitional housing for people who are homeless and have the need to be able to come out of that situation into transitional housing, crisis housing first, and then transitional housing from there. That all has to be funded. And right now, what I'm hearing from most communities locally is that the funds are not there. The resources are not there. We have some great programs that they've started here at Kitsap to address the homeless issue. And the other aspect of housing is building homes that are affordable for individuals that live here now. And that would be children, like my children, who's 38 years old and trying to buy a home. The regulations that are coming down on new building is very, very expensive and makes it difficult for builders to build, and in turn makes the housing prices go up. So we have to address that.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Well, we have appropriated a lot of money into the Housing Trust Fund. So in the interim, I've been working with the Kitsap Builders Association in our county to figure out what are the sticking points and why are developers not pursuing the Housing Trust Fund money that the state allocated in historic amounts to bring more development here. And so investigating that right now, also, definitely would support increasing funding to the Housing Trust Fund if we have the resources to do so. Hopefully our colleagues can get some good tax policy so we can have the resources for that. But also I do support, looking at our zoning laws and incentivizing builders to create multifamily units that would be more cost efficient for renters. This is probably one of the very biggest issues in our community right now is affordable housing. And so I'm actually thinking of going on the housing committee so I can be a champion there.
Okay, thanks. Drew?
So probably one of the best strategies for addressing homelessness is something we've done right here in Kitsap County. Some of you might know about Pendleton Place, which is a new 72 unit supported housing development. It's gorgeous. I mean, we were at the ribbon cutting not long ago. In fact, I think the league contributed welcome baskets to people who would be staying at Pendleton Place. And the idea is under one roof, you have a place to stay. You also have mental health support, healthcare support, substance abuse supports, and food, job counseling, and so on. Now, we need more of this, but boy, is that a great start, and what a wonderful thing to have in our community. Now, more generally on the supply side, we need a lot more homes in areas that are already zoned for density. I've been a big supporter of loosening the restrictions around ADUs, which used to be called mother-in-law apartments, to provide as many opportunities as we can for people to rent or eventually to buy, just to get their foot in the door.
Okay, thanks. And this sort of relates to something you've mentioned, Tara, I think. House Bill 1782, the missing middle bill, housing bill, which failed to pass last session, would have mandated an increase in housing densities for Washington cities, allowing the construction of duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes on lots currently zoned for a single-family house. Do you support this, and why or why not? Tara, you get to go first.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I support that bill in theory, and know that there are some places in my district that wouldn't be appropriate for, such as Bainbridge Island, because of needing the right infrastructure to support the development, and heard loud and clear from people on Bainbridge Island that they did not want that bill to apply to them. I've been working with the prime sponsor on that bill over the interim, and I think she is going to bring that back and in a different form. And I don't know what the impacts will be yet for our district, but it's possible only some parts of Bremerton would be affected by it. And it would be more targeted towards King County and Snohomish and Pierce County. So it's really difficult to think about the environmental impacts, to balance the environmental impacts and the voices of our environmental champions in our district and the need for affordable housing. But we'll see what it looks like when it comes back.
Okay, Drew?
So in principle, this bill was going at the right problem, right? We want to see more duplexes, triplexes, ADUs, whatever, in areas that are already zoned for density, where there are already a lot of people coming in and out. The problem practically is finding out how you do that in a world where traditionally it's rightly a local responsibility to figure out how to plan, particularly where you have to be very sensitive about the carrying capacity of the environment, especially the aquifers. Like, you just can't stack a bunch of things in an area where there's only one aquifer, where if it goes down, the entire community has no water. So this is an enormously complex, tricky area to get the balance. I don't think the bill last year got the balance right. But again, in general, as I said in the answer to the last question, we need more affordable options built quickly in areas that are already zoned for density, where a lot of people live. And I'm eager to see more flexible, creative solutions for that.
Okay, Paige?
I can only speak to this from the builder's perspective, and that's that it would be nice to see if we could also incorporate, again, I don't know about that specific bill, so I can't speak to supporting it or not. It sounds like there's a lot of room for growth in it, though. I would say that we could also put a focus on multi-use properties where you can bring businesses and housing together in one unit. I've seen it be very successful in a lot of cities. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be in a downtown city like Seattle. Multi-use answers a lot of problems. It helps the businesses, and it doesn't put so much pressure on the builders to pass on cost to build these new units. That's kind of where I would go to the focus. And then, of course, we always have, like Drew said, we always have the issue of infrastructure. We can't put the cart before the horse. We have to make sure that our cities can support these new populations without passing the cost on to the population.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Last session, the funding of the prototypical school model was increased to support more physical, social, and emotional support in the schools. Would you support increasing funding to meet all current needs in the schools? Drew?
So here's what we did last year, which was great. We put about $600 million over the course of a biennium into having nurses, counselors, and therapists in all the public schools. That's long overdue. You need a school nurse. Okay, you need somebody to go to if something goes wrong during the course of the day. Now, in general, though, let's remember we have roughly doubled total spending on the K through 12 school system to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. So obviously there are needs. There are always needs, but I think we need to make sure that we are looking at what are we doing in an era where enrollment in some districts is declining, and what are we doing to make sure that we are prioritizing people with the greatest needs. For example, I'm generally aware that we don't fund special education services the way we should. We probably need to do more of that at the state level. That's an example of the kind of targeted investment that I think we should continue looking at making in our schools.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Paige?
I'm actually a strong supporter of school choice. I think that, as Drew said, we've seen a decline. It's up to in 2021, it was at 39%, I believe, and now we're up to close to 42%, 42,000 kids that have stepped away from the school system. And I think that has a lot of factors to it, but primarily I think parents are unhappy with the way that our schools are being run. So I don't know that more funding is going to fix that problem. I'm a huge advocate for having parents having choice and also bringing the parents and the educators back to the table. Right now, I don't think that parents feel heard. I think that we are paying a lot of money per student. And if we continue to decline in enrollment, that's going to hurt our public schools.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Yes, I really supported the funding that we gave to the school districts for the school counselors, nurses, and therapists. And again, when I think about adverse childhood experiences and giving kids a first chance, so we don't have, you know, a bunch of people suffering in their adult life that need a second chance, I think it does go back to our K through 12 education system. And you know, I would like to see more targeted investments into special education, and also for students who are being homeschooled, that they can get different services through the school district that they're assigned to, where the parent is doing homeschool and things like that. So, you know, it does come down to, though, how we don't have a, you know, just empty pot of money. And so it's very difficult sometimes to make decisions. And so we want to use the money wisely. And so targeted investments into the kids who need it the most, I think, is the way to go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question. In this page, you get to go first on this one. Inflation is a challenge for many. What should the legislature do to help those dealing with the rising costs of gas, food, housing, and so forth?
I think probably one of the fastest things they could do is reduce taxes by 1% for individuals. Senator Doss actually proposed Senate Bill 5932, which would have given a full 1% decrease in taxes, down from 6.5 to 5.5%. And if you calculate that over the totality of our of Washingtonians, that's $2 billion in tax relief. The last time we had a tax cut was 1982. And there are a few other bills that came up recently in this last legislative session. Bill number House Bill 2018 that would have created a 3-day sales and use tax holiday in September, that was voted against and not passed. And that would have been some immediate relief for families who are doing their back to school shopping without really cutting into the $15 billion in excess taxes that we had in our budget.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
Yeah, I think that we need to work with our federal partners to look at the record profits of the oil companies over the last year and put some caps on that. They have really profited off of our tragedy in the pandemic and have come out with record profits. And I think that that is true for many of the most wealthiest people in our nation, in the corporations that are having skyrocketing profits. And so I would like to work with our federal partners to address that issue. You know, we could do some, and we have done, like the working families tax credit, which I'm really happy about. That's going to be rolling out. That's going to provide some tax refund to our families that need it the most. I am generally opposed to, you know, reducing the sales tax across the board. I think that people that have income and are spending a lot of money benefit more than the poorest people amongst us. So I'm looking at equity.
Okay, Drew?
So let's look at the most expensive things in anyone's budget, which are housing, healthcare, and a college education. Housing, we've already talked about, you know where I stand there. On healthcare, we need a lot more choices so we can keep competition and keep prices down. The situation in Kitsap County with healthcare right now is a disgrace. I was one of the people who protested the closing of the old Harrison in Bremerton because I thought, and I still think, that we need more than one fully staffed hospital to support Kitsap County. And I'll be supporting legislation next year to make sure that we look at what happens to output of services as we have healthcare consolidation. Third is college education. I've been a leader in the legislature in keeping college affordable. And in fact, thanks to a bill of mine, we tax lawyers, software, tax professionals, and others, and we use the money to make public college in Washington State tuition free for families of 4 who make 60 grand a year or less. And we give partial scholarships all the way up to the state's median income. That is real relief that helps people go achieve their dreams and get jobs and support their families.
Okay, thank you. Well, this kind of leads into what you were talking about too, Drew. The question is, we have a medical crisis with our only hospital and most providers in Kitsap County. What, if anything, can the legislature do to address this? Tara?
Thank you. There's a few things that we can do. I was proud to co-sponsor and have been working with a lot of the nurses in the interim, and proud to be endorsed by the nurses. I co-sponsored the bill that would provide for patient safe ratios for staff and patients. A lot of the nurses are leaving because the conditions are so egregious. And I'm a former registered nurse, and I know exactly how it feels to leave a shift and not be able to provide the care that our patients deserve. I also hear from community members who are going to St. Michael's for care and are not seeing a nurse for hours. And so providing the right conditions through legislation to where there is patient ratios is really important. Also, I am proud to sponsor the Keep Our Care Act, which is making sure that when we have religious hospitals merging and acquiring all of our beds, that we have standards in place to make sure that we don't lose access to care.
Okay, thank you. Drew?
So a few things. Number one gets back to something I said in the last question. We already have competition laws that generally protect against price fixing and when mergers increase prices. We also need to look at what mergers and consolidation do to output, to quality of care, because that is exactly what we are seeing. When you get rid of choices for healthcare in Kitsap County, sure enough, you get worse care because there isn't competition. That's something you're going to see legislative focus on in the next session. Second, we have a nursing shortage countywide and statewide. Thanks to one of my bills, we expanded nursing faculty pay at community colleges. So for the first time, Olympic College was able to hire a full complement of nursing faculty. We probably need to do more of that because we are still in a nursing shortage. And third, we need to look more creatively, whether it's a public hospital district or anything else, at any other way to get some more choices for people locally in Kitsap County.
Okay, thank you. Paige?
Fortunately, I can say that I agree with Tara and Drew and everything that they said, but I also think that we can't ignore the elephant in the room, and that's the staffing issues that we're suffering because of the mandates. The mandates for vaccinations, for medical professionals, given all of the information that we've acquired about vaccines over the last 6 months, seems out of place. I think it's time to roll back the mandates on vaccinations for all of our healthcare professionals and open up those doors and allow the nurses to come back in. We're paying an exorbitant amount of money for traveling nurses because our local nurses do not want to be forced into having a vaccine that, in their opinion, doesn't work, or for whatever reason, they don't want to have it. Forcing somebody to have a medical procedure or receive a shot that they don't want to have is just another way of taking away choice.
Okay, thank you, Paige. Okay. After the laws passed and funding provided by the legislature, what progress is the state making toward making broadband available to all, including those that live in poverty and can't pay the big price of having broadband installed? And Drew, you get to go first on this one.
I'm so happy because it was my bill, the Public Broadband Act, that finally gave Kitsap Public Utility District and all the other PUDs in the state the ability to run retail broadband directly to the public. Boy, the cable companies hated that bill. They tried everything they could to kill that bill. But we had the Suquamish tribe, we had parents, we had teachers, and we defeated them. And we are looking forward to opening up public broadband. We are thinking right now about how to use the federal money that came down in the Infrastructure and Jobs Act to push out broadband as widely as we can. But one of our guiding principles is if we are spending public money on broadband, we want this to go to public networks that are open access, that are accountable to the public, and not as an indirect subsidy to the cable companies, which is, by the way, what has happened in this space for decades. So we are going to be very careful in trying to protect that money so it goes actually to benefit the public and get cheaper, better, faster broadband out to people.
Okay. Paige?
Well, after that impassioned speech, I'm not sure that there's much more to say. Drew has done an admirable job. I do believe that laws forbid cable monopolies in the beginning, but they were really unable to enforce it. So you know, the work that he's done has made that possible, the enforcement possible. On a side note, I read a thing the other day that talks about there are portions of Bainbridge Island that still don't have broadband and still don't have cable. And so I assume that all of those communities, even on Bainbridge Island, would be looped into the work that Drew's doing. And I have to say, I would probably continue his work in that area if I'm elected. I think it's a worthy cause.
Okay, thank you, Paige. Tara?
I don't have much to add. I love supporting my seatmate. He is so passionate about this issue. And I just tell him, put me in, coach, wherever you need me. I'm on the rules committee. I'll pull your bill. Let's get this done. And, you know, he has been such an incredible leader and I am just honored to serve with him. And I'm really proud of Kitsap County where, you know, I think we are doing the best with this new law and that we will really walk it through implementation because we have such a great leader in Representative Hansen. So.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, here's another one that is a toughie one. Washington ranks very low on the number of psychiatric beds per population out of all of the states. What can be done to ensure access to mental health care? And Paige, you get to go first with this one.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, it's just that Washington ranks very low on the number of psychiatric beds per population out of all of the states. What can be done to ensure access to mental health care?
I think that this goes back to one of the earlier questions when we were talking about homelessness. I mean, the resources have to be there. We do have the new 72-bed facility that Drew mentioned, and it's doing its job, but it's clearly not enough to address all of the mental health issues that we have going on here. Honestly, that's kind of the answer. The answer that I would give has already been answered in an earlier question. We need more resources. We need to be better stewards of the tax dollars that we already have. And Kitsap Mental Health shared a story that they used to get their funding directly from the Senate, from the state. And so whereas they would get $100 or $100,000 to work with the things, they brought in a third party, Molina, for profit to establish what Kitsap should be doing with that. And so now they only get 70,000. I'm out of time, sorry.
Okay, but that you brought up good points. Thank you. Tara?
Yeah, you know, we did allocate some funding for some new psychiatric beds across the state in the last biennium, but also the University of Washington Behavioral Health Teaching Hospital hopefully will address the workforce challenges. So it's not just about the funding to build a facility. We also have a behavioral health workforce shortage. And that's for a couple of reasons. First, it's difficult to actually get through the training, but also the compensation for behavioral health workers is really low. So we have last session, we increased the Medicaid reimbursement rate for behavioral health workers by 7%, but it's still not where it needs to be. So again, we're going back to tax policy and how much money we have, and we don't have enough to solve all of the problems. And we need to approach this both by the actual Capitol buildings, but also the workforce.
Okay. Drew?
So when you're talking about psychiatric beds, you're talking about places for people to stay who are really the very most severely mentally ill. And we are building more all the time, but that's not the entirety of the mental health crisis in this state or in this country. I mean, as Representative Simmons correctly noted, a few years ago, the legislature appropriated a lot of money to the University of Washington to scale up a new behavioral health teaching hospital. So the idea is this is basically the on-site med school for the next generation of therapists and mental health professionals. That is going to be a huge contributor to our ability to get more people out seeing patients in the community. Because if you get people help early, at the front end in an appropriate way, you will eventually reduce the need at the back end for these intensive acute inpatient beds. And that's the direction I'd like to see us go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're sort of nearing the end of the questions. And this, Tara, this is for you. Do you support the police reform legislation as passed, or do you think it should be changed some?
Yeah, thank you so much for the question. We passed about 13 police reform bills, and the vast majority of that I do support, and was also supported the clarifications that we made in the last session to make sure that police know that they can use reasonable force to provide reasonable care to people that are suffering with behavioral health issues and things like that. I also did support the rollback of the vehicular pursuit policy. It was a difficult decision because I know, and the data shows, that so many people have died, but innocent bystanders have died from vehicular pursuits, and they're not the safest way to apprehend people. I really appreciate the law enforcement, and what they've been doing lately is using the Washington State Patrol plane to actually follow people and then put down spike strips to apprehend people. I think that's a creative solution, but I would support it. I am endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police and our local sheriff, and I've ridden with police officers and want to make sure they have the tools to do their job.
Okay. Drew?
So when we passed a number of bills related to law enforcement, use of force, access to counsel, I mean, the idea was to create a state where people have trust in law enforcement has the tools to do their job, and we are making sure that law enforcement is accountable to the public and the community. We did not get the balance right on every single one of these bills. I'm just going to tell you right now. And, some of them I have supported going back and revisiting. For example, I did support and do support making some revisions to what we did with the chase rules. As Representative Simmons noted, what you're trying to balance there is you want to allow law enforcement to chase people in dangerous, high-risk situations, but you want to make sure that you're being careful about chases, because that's when people die, like bystanders die, other people die, right? We didn't get the balance exactly right in that, and I was in very close touch with our sheriff's department over the course of the session in trying to revise it, and look forward, if I'm elected, to being part of the conversation of revising that in the future.
Okay, thank you. Paige?
Well, I spoke to this earlier. No, I did not support, I do believe that reform is necessary. But we need to also get more creative with other solutions. One, we need to listen better to the police officers and the deputies and the sheriffs when they tell us that these things aren't working. You know, one creative solution that we could bring in and work harder on is bringing more canine units into our local police forces. When you have a canine unit, then you are using dogs to do the things that police officers can't do. You have less physical interaction between a police officer and the suspect. You can send dogs into a place to bring suspects out or to subdue them without the use of pepper spray and guns and lots of other things. I mean, yeah, I believe we need to increase our use of canine units and our police officers to help them do their job better without hurting individuals that need to be apprehended.
Okay, great. You know, I think we're going to end within the hour. Thank you all for your answers to the questions. We covered a lot of ground tonight, and now we have the time for the closing statements, and this will be another minute and a half. You can bring up anything, like if you weren't able to answer a question to the fullest or something. But however you want to end with the attendees at our forum to think about when they mark their ballot. So we'll go in the opposite direction this time. So Tara, you get to do your closing statement first.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I am incredibly honored to have served our district in the last 2 years. I want to remind, our constituents that I am the only pro-choice candidate in this race, and I think that's really important. We are working really hard right now to make sure that we can enshrine the access to reproductive health care in our community that we've enjoyed over the last many years, and make sure that that's never going to go away. And so that's something I've been working on a lot during the interim. I have tried my best to advocate for this community, bring home a lot of investments for a variety of programs. I've been working with our law enforcement, our firefighters, our nurses and teachers, environmental champions to really bring your voice forward in all that I do. I also approach all of my work through a racial equity lens and looking to lift up our communities that have suffered so much economically and in healthcare outcomes and education outcomes, and make sure I'm the voice for people who haven't had access to the legislature in the past. I think my lived experience is really important. I also am now a mom of a United States Marine, so I'm very proud of that and happy to represent the voices of military families that make up a large portion of our community. So I ask for your vote again and send me back to Olympia so I can continue to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. And Paige, you get to go next.
I just want to say that when I'm elected, I want to continue to focus on some of the things that those that have gone before me have worked really hard on. I would continue to make college and specifically trade education more available and more of a priority. I also think that we need to do it a little bit differently. I think we need to start much earlier. I think we need to focus on academic skills and not just social engineering. I think the STEM programs that we have should begin in grade school, giving these kids a much better start. It's only common sense to say that we have to make these education in STEM and these investments in our socially disadvantaged sectors of our community. Programs at the high school level and a path to trade schools and college education. As far as the government is concerned or the environment is concerned, I think that every government program has overhead that adds to an already bloated government system. When we are looking at programs that we're using, like the Climate Commitment Act, I think we need to have metrics on their impact, not just on the activity that they produce. And I really, really believe that tax incentives are a more effective government program than taxing than taxing individuals. I think that if we create tax incentives, we find better programs.
Okay, thank you, Paige. Drew?
Well, thank you very much to the League for putting on this great forum and everyone who's streaming it and watching it for caring enough to spend 45 minutes or so paying attention to the future of our democracy. And thank you to my fellow panelists for a thoughtful and informed debate. You know, Representative Simmons mentioned something that we didn't talk about, which is when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, it kind of put this country into a bit of a crisis. In Washington state, we protect abortion rights, and we always will. But what's going to happen when people from Texas or Idaho come here seeking an abortion? I chair the Civil Rights and Judiciary Committee, and I've spent a lot of the last couple months working on a major bill to protect our doctors and our nurses so they don't get hauled into court civilly or criminally when people come here seeking abortion care. That's the kind of thing that just gets thrown at you by the world. The rest of the time, I'll work on helping people get decent jobs to support their families. I talked a little bit about expanding Western's presence in Kitsap County. We're looking at adding new engineering degrees. We're looking at adding new opportunities for social work and counseling, maybe something else in IT. But it's not always about college. There are plenty of ways to support your family that don't run through a four-year college degree. Last week, I was meeting with the unions that represent HVAC technicians. I am excited to see a lot more opportunities for young people for whom college might not be the right choice to go make $30 an hour as an apprentice HVAC technician, help build the new economy and support their family along the way. That's what I'd love to keep working on if you all would trust me to send me back to Olympia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Drew. We want to thank BCAT for recording this forum for broadcast on cable channel 3 or 12. And the League has also recorded this, and it will be on our website, which is lwv-kitsap.org in a few days. And we have a list of videos on our website. So encourage any of your family, friends, supporters, whoever, to go if they weren't able to appear at this forum tonight, that they can go and watch that forum, watch that video. I know a lot of people have said that to me, that I can't attend tonight, but I'll watch the video when it's up. So in a couple of days, and when I see it and when I hear that it's up, I will email you all and let you know that the video is up, ready for viewing. And doggone it, I always say this at the end of, I mainly do 23rd Legislative District forums, Paulsbo City Council, North Kitsap, and sometimes Central Kitsap school boards. And I have the same feeling at the end of every forum. I am so proud to live where I live and to see all of you all disagreeing on some policies, but not being disagreeable. And you were polite, you were respectful of one another. And I just want to let you know, it makes me very proud. And I have a lot of faith in our government because people like you step forward and run for office. So go out there. It's not much longer. It'll be over soon. So, and good night. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.